When you think of Sonic games, you usually think of the main console versions, the big HD releases that get all the attention. But here's the thing, for every big Sonic game in the 2000s, there was often a demake, a smaller, stripped down version made for weaker hardware like the Wii, the PlayStation 2, or the 3DS. And for a lot of fans, these weren't side notes. They were the Sonic games they grew up with. And today, I want to go through these overlooked demakes and figure out, were they just watered down copies, or do they actually stand on their own? Sonic Unleashed is still one of the most ambitious Sonic games ever made, but depending on which version you played, your experience could have been completely different. Everybody remembers the HD version, the one that basically defined modern Sonic gameplay. Even recent games like Frontiers and Shadow Generations are still borrowing from that 3D boost formula 17 years later. God, we're all getting old. Graphically, it still holds up. Soundtrack-wise, it's one of the best in the series. And those daytime levels, Skyscraper Scamper, I'm looking at you. Absolute peak Sonic. Even if the Werehog stages suck ass, you can't deny the love and passion Sonic Team poured into this game. But here's the thing, while most people were boosting through Rooftop Run on their Xbox 360s or PS3s, a whole generation of kids were playing a completely different game. To them, the Wii version wasn't just the knockoff, okay? It was Sonic Unleashed, and that's where things get interesting. Sonic Unleashed for the Wii and PS2 is a very interesting game. While it obviously had to be downscaled to run on older gen hardware, it really feels like an early prototype for the mainline game. When it comes to gameplay, the HD and Wii versions of Unleashed take a very different approach while still being relatively similar to each other. In the HD version, Sonic slowly unlocks his abilities as he progresses through the game, but in the Wii and PS2 releases, you start with everything already available. Though the game still forces you through tutorials at the same points, making the beginning hour of this game feel so damn frustrating. It's just tutorial after tutorial. The boost system is completely different too. On the PS3 and 360, boosting is continuous. You just hold the button down and Sonic keeps going as long as you got meter. On the Wii and PS2, boost is segmented. Each press uses a short burst, lasting a few seconds. And the bar can grow to 6 segments by collecting rings, performing action chains, and drifting. Action chains are unique here. String attacks, rails, and speed pads together to build extra boost power. This game was co-developed by Sonic Team and Dimps, who are best known for the Sonic Rush games. Basically the blueprint for Unleashed's boost formula, and even though they're usually associated with 2D Sonic games, they absolutely knew how to make some incredible 3D stages. The level design in the daytime stages is legitimately impressive. Alternate paths are everywhere, often shaving off time while taking you to a completely different area before returning you to the main path. Jungle Joyride is a standout. Gorgeous for a Wii game, stable FPS unlike the PS3, so hey, it has that going for it. And clever shortcuts using robots with bumpers to bounce high in the air. Eggman Lane also has tricks. If you homing attack fast enough, you can grab a lever in front of the targeted badnik, launching yourself onto a shortcut. Like, hello? Isn't that like the most ingenious idea ever? This game is filled with so many creative level design choices that it honestly makes me really want to fall in love with this version of the game. The daytime levels are kick-ass, packed with replay value and perfect for mastering layouts and going for S-rings, just like the original HD version. Unfortunately, the Werehog makes up like 70% of the game, and somehow they managed to make the Werehog even worse than his PS3 counterpart, which honestly is pretty impressive. And I always wanted to like the Werehog. I always thought a Sonic beat-em-up hybrid could work, but these levels, they're just a chore to play. Especially in the Wii version, there's like 100 Werehog stages and only one act of modern Sonic levels besides Apotos. Yeah, there are bonus levels, which, fun fact, were mostly cut modern Sonic boosting stages reused as missions. But come on, those levels are fun. I don't want to slog through literal dog feces just to get to them. But complaining aside, the Wii version of Sonic Unleashed proves that the remakes can stand on their own. Sure, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of the HD version, but its daytime levels are clever, fast, and genuinely really fun. Enough to make me just replay the levels for the S-ranks. For a whole generation of fans, this was the Sonic Unleashed they grew up with. And I think it really goes to show that even a stripped down version can leave just as big of an impact as the main game. Sonic Colors was graced with a DS port, also developed by Dimps. And as you might expect, it's a very different game from the Wii original, acting as a spiritual successor to the Sonic Rush series. The DS version is a fully 2D platformer, totally unlike the Wii game with its fully 3D levels. And yes, I'm being sarcastic. This handheld entry was built in the Sonic Rush engine, which means it plays very similarly, though with some changes. Tricks are gone, the homing attack is tied directly to the jump button now, and there are new moves introduced in colors, like the stomp, slide, and wall jump. Wisp returned, and they're as enjoyable here as the console version, with 6 types: white, orange, yellow, cyan, and the DS exclusive violet void and red wisp. They're used cleverly for traversal and hidden paths. Normally I don't like wisps, but in this game they're genuinely fun. The DS version also spices things up with cameo appearances from other Sonic characters like Cream, Silver, Blaze, and Omega during the game's optional missions. Crossworlds even references the events of the DS game directly, so the game's plot is canon to the Sonicverse if anybody really cares about that. There's even a secret boss, Mother Wisp, letting Sonic become Super Sonic after collecting the Chaos Emeralds during special stages, a neat exclusive that makes the handheld feel like a completely different experience. What really surprised me though is how much I enjoyed this version compared to the Wii one. On Wii, I love the environments, the music, and the very little 3D segments in that game, but I always felt it leaned a little too hard into 2D sections, almost like 70% of the game, and those just aren't as fun. So it is kind of funny that I ended up liking a fully 2D version more, but the DS version embraces its style. It's a fun little platformer. Sure, it's nothing crazy, but damn it, it's still fun. My only real complaint is that there's no trick system like Rush, which would have made these stages even more satisfying, but you know, you can't have everything. Sonic Generations is amazing. You know what else is amazing? Definitely not the 3DS version. Developed by Dimps yet again, and no, this won't be the last time they show up. The 3DS edition is basically a 2D side-scrolling platformer, kind of like Sonic Colors from earlier, but, well, worse. Maybe it's because base Generations is so good that anything else just looks bad in comparison, but I really couldn't get into this one. Modern Sonic gameplay is fine. Yeah, it's fine. You're missing the tricks and speed from Rush, the wisp from Colors, and in return, you kind of get nothing new. Besides like the camera shifting into 3D sometimes, I guess that's new. For a game celebrating both 2D and 3D Sonic, Modern Sonic is stuck in the second dimension, making him and Classic Sonic feel way too similar, outside of the boost. They even give Classic Sonic a homing attack later on, which makes the distinction between the two of them even blurrier. Classic Sonic's also fine, but he is missing his overpowered spin dash from the HD version. The first 3 Classic Sonic levels are basically their Genesis originals, just ported over to the Rush engine. The goobers at Dimps even included a checkpoint right next to the goalpost in Mushroom Hill because there was originally a boss fight in Sonic 3 and Knuckles before the end of the stage. So they just got rid of the boss for Generations but just kept the goalpost there, so it makes no sense why it's there because you're not going to die before you reach the goalpost. If I'm playing through the same stages with a worse feeling Sonic, I might as well just play a Classic Sonic game instead. At least seeing Classic Sonic and Emerald Coast is kind of cool. Oh yeah, Emerald Coast. Wait, that wasn't in the original game, was it? One really cool thing about 3DS Generations is that aside from Green Hill, all the stages are different from the console/PC counterparts. The handheld features Casino Night instead of Chemical Plant, Mushroom Hill instead of Sky Sanctuary, Emerald Coast instead of Speed Highway, Water Palace from Sonic Rush instead of Seaside Hill, and Tropical Resort instead of Planet Wisp. In total, there are 7 stages, a slight downgrade from the original game's 9, but each stage comes with its own remix of its selected level, exclusive to the 3DS version. So yeah, the 3DS version of Generations might not live up to the HD original, and it's missing a lot of what makes modern and classic Sonic feel distinct, but as a handheld demake, it's still doing what these versions are meant to do, offering a unique take for a different platform, with its own stages, music, and quirks. It's not perfect, but it's definitely its own little Sonic experience, for better or worse. It also has a better boss fight than the original game, so there's that. Sonic Lost Worlds is one of the most divisive entries in the franchise, and somehow I've never played the main game. I might give it a shot someday because honestly it always looked kind of fun to me, but today we're not looking at that version. We're talking about Sonic Lost World for the Nintendo 3DS, baby. Woohoo! It's yet another demake developed by Dimps. They were making them work overtime, and honestly, this game's kind of fun. I feel guilty as hell for enjoying it as much as I did. From what I can tell, this version is shockingly faithful to the Wii U release. The visual, the controls, it's all there. It's not like a Generations or Color situation. Now it's like a fully 3D game with some like 2D elements in it, which is honestly really impressive for a 3DS. I really enjoyed the parkour mechanics, and the spin dash is just plain fun to hold down and blast your levels. They even tell you in tutorial text that you can hold down the Y button to perform a spin dash indefinitely, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's not even explained in the Wii U version. You just have to figure that out by yourself. Sonic himself feels a little floaty midair, which makes some jumps kind of scary. But hey, every Sonic game has its jank, so I can let that slide for now. Up until about 2 levels in, I was genuinely having fun. Almost like I was playing a video game or something. However, I was then thrown into a special stage where you had to move Sonic using the handheld's gyroscope. My totally legit Nintendo 3DS didn't support that feature, probably an early model or something, so I had to stop there. All in all, the game's okay. If you grew up with this version of the game, I would love to hear your thoughts about it because I really couldn't play much of it myself, but it seemed pretty fun. I was originally going to cover a bunch of Sonic ports and demakes made for mobile, but honestly, there are so many that I could just make a separate video about that whole topic, so I'm not going to delve into that now. That said, I do want to mention one particular game because it's kind of funny. The mobile companion to Sonic Forces Speed Battle, ended up being way more of a success than the actual main game. No joke, it was so much more successful that Sega just renamed it to Sonic Forces. That's so fucking funny to me. Imagine your little side mobile game outliving and outshining the real Sonic Forces. I know it's not much of a demake of Forces, the game is practically Sonic Dash 3.0, but still. So after looking at all these games, what do we make out of Sonic demakes? Were they just watered down copies, or do they actually stand on their own? Honestly, it's a little bit of both. Some of these games really do feel like compromised takes on the bigger, better games, like Generations 3DS, which just couldn't match the magic of its HD counterpart. But others, like Colors DS or even the Wii version of Unleashed, brought their own unique ideas and left a real impact on the people who grew up with them. And that's kind of the magic of these demakes. They weren't just filler. They were often the Sonic games for an entire audience. Kids who only had a Wii or a DS or a phone. For them, these weren't knockoffs. These games were the real deal. And looking back now, it's fascinating to see how different versions of Sonic games existed side by side at one point, shaping how fans remember the franchise. So yeah, maybe not every demake was a masterpiece, but they all tell their own little story in the Sonic legacy. And honestly, that's worth remembering.